Hi, I'm Dibley, and in this video we're going to talk about how I set up the rolling stock and how I operate it for an exhibition for Dibs Yard. Generally, the stock setup for Dibs Yard is like this. We start off with one loco, which will be the shunting loco, in the engine shed. Please note that the actual buildings have been removed for brevity. Then we have a couple of wagons in the departure siding and a couple of wagons in the arrival siding. So they would be being unloaded. These are already loaded or unloaded, depending on which way the goods are going. We also start with one goods train with 4 wagons and a guard's van in one of the fiddle yards. We also have a passenger service, whether it's a DMU or a single carriage with a loco. In the other end, the other fiddle yard, we have another goods train with 4 wagons and a guard's van. There is a reason why we only have 4 wagons and a guard's van, and I'll show you that. Basically, in the passing loop, we need to be able to clear this uncoupling pad here. We also need to be able to clear the other uncoupling pad there. So you can't have any more than 5 wagons. We like to run a guard's van, so that's why it's only 4 wagons. We always leave at least one line in a fiddle yard open to allow any trains to be run in there. Otherwise you can end up with a little bit of a logjam. Leaving a lane free in the other fiddle yard allows us to run a train into it. Obviously normally that goods train would stop and unload some of his wagons or pick up some more. Once in the fiddle yard, we then top and tail the loco and the goods van, so the train is ready to go back out the other way. I normally don't run too many passenger services, but we like to have one just in case there's a point where you're a bit stuck for what to do and a member of the general public turns up. Oops, I've overshot. In these cases, we can run the rail car or the single carriage up to the platform, and it gives us a bit of breathing space while we think about what our next move is. And we can run it on and take it to staging again. Generally, the layout works best if there are 2 operators. One operator who's in charge of bringing trains into the scenic area, and another operator who's in charge of shunting the yard itself. While the trains are being prepared, the shunter can take wagons from one of the 2 arrival yards and place them in the departure yard. Or in this case, maybe we'll just move these 2 wagons into this siding, and then we'll take the 2 wagons from the departure siding and we will place them down in the loop, ready for collection by the next train. Oops. I am possibly running a little bit faster than I would normally, because you don't want to be bored watching this. Normally for exhibition purposes, I do prefer the shunter to run pretty slow. We will now uncouple, which I won't be able to do one-handed. If you're running left to right, you can leave the wagons for collection here. We stop the train here and uncouple. Once we've uncoupled, we take the loco into the fiddle yard. Obviously we need a clean line, and then we run back, pick up the two wagons for collection, take them to the head of the train, couple them up, pick off the two wagons that we actually want to leave behind, we'll take those two wagons off, and we'll run them back into the small passing loop, stopping over that pad so that we can uncouple. We'll come back and pick these two up. We've now got our 4-wagon train reconnected. That now moves off stage into the staging yard. While the second operator is turning the train round, or possibly even swapping out some wagons to change the train, the operator of the scenic board can collect these two wagons and put them into the arrival lane, either lane 3 or lane 2. In this case we'll have to go in lane 3 because we have other wagons in lane 2. The next task for the operator of the scenic board will be to go and move the wagons that are in lane 2 that have already been unloaded and put them in the departure lane, ready for when the next train comes along. Some cases you may just be able to take them straight away and put them in the passing loop again. Remembering to stop over the pad for uncoupling. If the pickup goods train is running right to left, then you need to leave the wagons on this loop somewhere. Generally, the best place is up here by this uncoupling pad. But to do that, you have to bring your shunter loco right out onto the branch and run right the way along, and then back into the head shunt. Don't forget to isolate the head shunt, otherwise your shunter will be running at the same time as your train. So when running right to left, we bring the loco up to this uncoupling pad here and stop just there, maybe a little bit further back, oops, somewhere about there. We then run off the head of the train, stop just off scene, change this point here, run back and pick up these two wagons, take them to the front of the train, pick up the two that we're dropping off, bearing in mind that they may not always be at the front, so you may have to do a little bit of jiggery-pokery to get the right wagons there. Let's say, for instance, we actually are not interested in the two open wagons, but we actually want the open wagon and the first van. Well, in this case, we'll stop there. We'll uncouple. Change the points. And run these two in instead. Stopping over that pad there. Now we have the fun of getting the right side of these wagons to put them in the siding. One of them's quite easy, but the other one we'll have to carry with us a little bit. Let's go and pick these up. Do make sure that point's on, otherwise it'll stop because it's electrofrog. I'll drop this one in there at that uncoupling pad. We'll have to just take this one because we can't actually run round two unless they're both tiny little 9-foot wagons. Then I think you can just about get round it. Right, we might have to use the permanent way siding, so hopefully no one's filled it up with anything. And we can run in there. Just drop this out of our way for the moment. Unfortunately that's not, oops. There is a bit of trouble with that point. Right, we uncouple there. Now we can run round. Now I will just show you while we're here. Sometimes, because of the way the three-way point is, I have to pull these back or push them in a certain direction to make full contact. I don't think the switch engages fully and gets the frog powered up. And there we go, there's a fine example. So I just pull the switches and it's fine. It's a bit hard on your fingers, but unfortunately it's all a bit late now to do anything with that. Right, now we've run round this one, we can go pick it up. Oops, or we could not pick it up. I don't think we're going to pick that up. Obviously it's better to try and arrange wagons that all have the same couplings. So if we're running small D's, run everything as small D's. Right, so then we can run this up here. We may realise that actually we've got two wagons in the arrival lane. Oh, and we have uncoupled. So we want to leave this in an arrival lane, but we've actually got two wagons already in the arrival lane, which is a bit of a pain. So we'll pick these up, and while we're here, we'll shunt these right at this moment and put these two in the departure lane because they've been unloaded already. So those two, we'll break the train there on that pad. Oops, try not to push so hard. Can't really do it. I wonder if I can do it with my toe. Might be able to do it with my toe. No, it's not going to do it. Possibly. No, not quite. You cannot uncouple with your toe. We can now go and drop this off in either of the two arrival lanes. Maybe we'll put it in lane 2 instead of lane 3. Once we've left that one, we now need to go and collect that one and run that one too. But that's pretty much the same as what we've just done for the other one, so I won't show you that. So with that completed, the shunter's back up in the head shunt, so we'll switch off the isolation for it. We have 2 wagons that are being unloaded in arrival lane 2 and 3, and 2 wagons that have already been unloaded, or loaded depending on which way around you're going, and they are in the departure lane. They are ready for the next train to come and collect them. We do have a couple of other sidings. We do have the engine shed. Like I said, the engine shed is removed for convenience of this video. There are 2 sections in here, so we can actually have one loco here and one loco there. They are both isolated from these switches, so you can have a loco right up next to another one. Sometimes when you're running steam, it's nice to bring the steam loco in and just park him near the coaling stage, just so he can be topped up. If it's a diesel, it might be nicer to bring him up a little bit near that little fuel tank there. This is the old permanent way siding. Now there is a pad there for uncoupling, and the track is dead up there. That wagon is permanently fixed. Now I would suggest you leave this free, either for doing a runaround like we just did previously, or for a guards van if you need to. One last siding is the creamery siding, which is this siding here. Now there is a pump here, so you can fill or empty, whichever way around it is, a Express Dairies tanker there. The tankers are a bit pernickety, so I don't tend to run them. I do need to take the flanges off the wheels and they might be better. But generally we have various different, because of the backstory, we have various different wagons in here. It can be a milk tanker, it can be an egg wagon, it could actually be something like this. A wagon here with loads of crates on it, because they're dismantling the creamery. So they will be taking the machinery out and taking it elsewhere, maybe selling it to a third world country. So you can use that siding as well, but generally we only put Express Dairies branded wagons in there. So you may say Express Dairies didn't have open wagons for machinery to go in. Well, rule number 1, on my layout, they do. As you can see, this is a XP fitted Express Dairies open wagon. All the points are controlled with these little slide switches. The brass wire does the movement, and the switch is a double pole double throw, and will show the indicator lights, which are not currently working, but they may be when you use this layout, and also the frog. All the uncouplers are controlled by these little levers here. Most of them are quite free. However, this one here, which does lane 2, and this one here, which does lane 3, is a bit difficult, and sometimes you have to get your finger right in to get the little pad to go up on lane 3. I do need to change that at some point, but it hasn't been done yet. Looking at the control panel, you can see all the different sections that can be isolated. You can see that I've got my numbers round the wrong way for the lanes in this video. The furthest one is 1, 2 and 3, not the other way around. I should actually swap these, because I believe it's customary to have the numbers going from closest to your main line or your branch line. Each of these can be switched on and off. As you might already have seen earlier in the video, the engine shed line has got 2 isolating points. We can isolate the 3-way and the double slip. We can isolate the head shunt and all of the points, as you can see from there. We can isolate the permanent way siding. We can isolate the Express Dairy siding. The blue section is very slightly different. It doesn't have an isolating switch. Instead, it has a rotary switch. B is for baseboard, which is that controller, and W is for walkabout, which is normally situated over there. That allows the main operator of the scenic board to run the blue line and all of the other lines, and the operator of the walkabout to occasionally run the blue line so they can bring in a train for unloading or loading, while the operator of the scenic board can carry on shunting. So if everything is going well and the operators are working well with each other, they can be quite synchronized with this. Another switch of note is this switch here on the end of the scenic board. There is one on either end. When it points towards the controller or the centre of the board, it means the board is powering the fiddle yard. When it's in the middle position, there is no power. When it's in the outer position, that is for an external feed, which we don't use at the moment. The switch on the fiddle yard is hopefully self-explanatory. When it points towards this track is live. When it's in the middle, none of the tracks are live. When it's this way, this track is live. The points on the fiddle yard are totally hydraulic. Just push it. Please try and run at scale speeds where possible. Obviously this is subject to the loco being able to run at slow speeds, and also subject to the audience. If the audience is a 7-year-old boy, you might not want to see it run this slow, you might want to run a little bit faster. If the audience is clearly someone who you think appreciates slow running, then by all means, let's let the loco crawl. It's one of the reasons why I love this Class 08. It will absolutely crawl. At some point in the future, I plan to have removable loads for most of the open wagons. So once this happens, feel free to pluck the load out when it reaches here, or maybe put the load back in if it's arrived empty. One last thing, try not to have any wagons just floating around like this. Make sure they are always connected to a train. The only reason why I ask this is it's quite an open fiddle yard, and sometimes these ends are quite exposed, and I am unfortunate enough to have been subject to a souvenir collector at one exhibition that I exhibited at. I think that's pretty well it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this walkthrough of how to operate Dibbs Yard. I'm sure there's stuff I've missed, and well, we can go through that when it turns up on the day. But at least you've got a basic idea of really how I kind of planned operation. Now, we're all human, and I very rarely manage to stick to my operation plan. But at least if we're sort of roughly aiming for the same kind of thing, we should be able to put on a bit of a show for anyone who's watching. If you're watching this video to learn how to run Dibbs Yard better at an exhibition that's coming up, then I thank you for taking the time to learn all about Dibbs Yard and how I like to see it run. If you're watching this video for any other reason, then I think you're a nutter, but thank you all the same, and I appreciate the fact that you got this far. But until next time, cheerio. Switch this on, and oops, or we could not pick it up. I don't think we're going to pick that up. In the arrival lane. Oh, and we have uncoupled. Leaving a lane free in the other. I normally don't run too much passenger wagons that have been placed and have been in the arrival yard. Once we've uncoupled, we derail. If the good train on this loop However, you can normally only run around one rack. Powered from the board. In the upward position, please try and run at scale speeds where appropriate. We'll obviously do tailor this. If it's a 6-year-old boy, he's not going to want to see it running at this speed. He's going to want to see it running faster. If your audience is